Welcome back to part 2 of Ptaah's journey to another creation and the Plejaren's mission of discovery in this other creation. So far, Ptaah has made it successfully over there, and since December of 2002, he's been searching for other civilizations in this universe he now is calling Rern. We left off with a contact report that Billy was having with Florena back in June of 2003. Florena had just reported that Ptaah had discovered a technological probe drifting through space, which he was about to start tracking. So now we return to the contacts that are ongoing, and it's now about 6 weeks later, and Billy finds he has a surprise visitor waiting for him.
Ptaah is back. Man, friend Ptaah, this is really a surprise. Be warmly welcomed and greeted, you universe explorer. Tell me, since when are you back here? Florena only told me today at noon that today someone will still drop by, but she said nothing about the fact that this would be you. Clearly it goes well with you, and you also appear to be contented. Therefore, I assume your expedition must have culminated successfully? Ptaah, you are very pleased to see me, my friend. This applies, however, also on my part, and it particularly pleases me to see you well and in good health. You be greeted as well. Yes, your assumption is correct, because my expedition was successful. This, at least for the first venture, about which you certainly want to hear, I assume, yes? To say is this, that suddenly everything very quickly has come to an end, because on the 30th of June, when we have unexpectedly found a humanity to which a probe in space brought us when we searched for its origin. Unfortunately, I do not have enough time today to explain everything in detail, so I will do so at a later point in time. Billy, of course, I know because Quetzal reported to me regarding this probe. However, I noticed that in the contact reports, the probe was reported by Florena, not Quetzal. However, who knows, Quetzal may have talked about it in a private conversation at some other point. However, Quetzal, was of the opinion that your expedition was to last a longer time. Now, however, start shooting. What arises from the foreign universe? You must not be detailed, but just briefly and succinctly describe the most important events. We can talk about it all at a later time in detail, as you say. Ptaah, so then listen. Actually, it appeared that we must extend our expedition still several months, but then success arrived unexpectedly. First, after several months of searching, we found a planet on which rather still wild humans lived, who were only equipped with stone axes, stone spears, and stone knives. Billy, thus, cavemen, respectively Stone Age humans or similar, correct? Ptaah, yes. They lived partly in caves, but also partly in primitive huts, which they made out of branches, leaves, and moss. Across the planet, we were able to identify 46 different groupings. The planet itself had large primeval forests as well as fertile land on which many and diverse animals roamed and fed themselves on all kinds of things. You can yourself imagine approximately the same appearance that Earth presented around 6 million years ago. Weeks later, after which we further penetrated into the foreign universe, we came upon a small artificial object which was drifting through free space. When we got hold of it, we established that it was a probe created by intelligent life forms, which certainly had served for the exploration of a planet, but, however, apparently had been driven from its course and was thrown out into free space. So we calculated the flight path of the probe and followed it for several months, after which we then actually reached a solar system in which about a dozen planets moved around a central star, although certainly only 2 of the planets were developed in such a wise that they were able to carry higher life, as we soon discovered. On one of the planets, the third, which was somewhat smaller than Earth and which was about 1.51 astronomical units distant from the Sun, and which traveled on its 677-day-long orbit around the central star and had a self-rotation of 21 hours and 37 minutes, there existed no humans, but only higher animal life forms of primeval form, as well as also this primeval condition applied to the vegetation. The second planet, somewhat greater than the Earth, had 3 large island continents. which existed in a large saltwater ocean and were surrounded by a large number of smaller islands. Their entire mass was around 1/3 greater than the continental masses and islands of Earth's put together. The planet was at a distance from the sun of 1.48 astronomical units and had a self-rotation of 22 hours and 52 minutes. On a side note, as an FYI, an astronomical unit, aka AU, according to our scientists, is a distance between the sun and the Earth, and it is approximately 149.6 million kilometers in distance. The Plejaren have stated in the past that our actual AU was closer to 153 million kilometers. The habitable zone of distance from the sun to the locale of a planet needs to be within 0.99 to 1.7 AUs. Thus, that is why the third wild planet previously mentioned with an AU of 1.51 that has the diverse life forms already will most likely eventually develop human life forms of its own, or perhaps when the second planet with the 3 continents has reached higher technological capabilities and are able to travel in space, maybe they'll colonize it. Who knows? Gee, it sure would be handy if we had another planet in the habitable range nearby. Oh, wait, we do. Mars is actually 1.52 AU away from the sun. So it just squeaks into that habitable range. But small detail is that there's no atmosphere there anymore. So until we learn how to make atmospheres, I suppose that's we're going to be living in domes if we ever get there. So continuing on with Ptaah's report. So this planet with the 3 continents carried human civilizations. In fact, there were 3 different races, which consisted of diverse peoples who were of white, green, and blue skin color, adding to a total number of around 498 million human beings. Our clarifications, which we carried out unobserved and without undertaking direct contact with the occupants, resulted in astonishing things, as I want to explain as follows. The populations of the 3 continents speak only 3 different languages, each with a uniform dialect, which we have not found anywhere else. And although the 3 races work together in every respect, such as medically, scientifically, technologically, etc., they do not mix with one another in the wise that there would exist marriage alliances between members of different races. All 3 races have the same culture, the same state of knowledge in all things, and a medical science which, highly developed, registered only just minor sicknesses. So in this respect, they are far ahead of terrestrial medical and surgical science. There is nothing to find regarding religions and cults of any kind, because all 3 races do not recognize belief in any wise, but only a kind of universal philosophy which is based on the fact that all life and existence arises from a higher power, which is simply called the might by them. And this is quite reverently observed, respected, and honored. However, it is not worshipped and not venerated. The might constitutes for them all origin of life and all existence, which both comes to be and again passes away, and again comes to be, and is a unity in a duality. So the material and the might, which lives in the material, passes away and again comes to be, while the material dissolves and changes into other material forms. Billy, this is practically the reincarnation of the spirit form. The might would be then simply creation, and at the same time, the spirit form. Ptaah, it is so, just only with other terms, as well as also everything interpreted and understood by the occupants of the planet. Regarding these 3 races, still is to say that they are absolutely peaceful. In fact, both from human to human, as well as, however, also among the races and other peoples themselves. Wars are foreign to them, just as well as hate and criminality, and purely technologically viewed, they are at the position which prevailed with Earth humans in the year 1968. Billy, astonishing. Then these human beings are far ahead of Earthlings. However, how is it then with the form of government? Just before we go there, Here's a quick snapshot of where we were on Christmas Eve, 1968. We'd made it into space for the first time. Okay, continuing on. Well, with the back to the leadership and the government, there exists a combined leadership, which consists of persons, respectively representatives of all the three races. Billy, then it is a proper democracy. And how is it with this leadership personnel? Do they also have their own power for decision making? Ptaah, the leadership personnel, which consists of three persons from all peoples, have only executing and advisory powers of the respective peoples, and they do not have their own possibility for decisions. All leadership personnel are elevated to the standing of wise persons, whose duty it also is to work out all required necessities and present them to the people who then decide about them. Incidentally, the three races and all the peoples do not know any party system, as is the case with humans on the earth. On the other hand, they have the manner of, as was the case since ancient times in Switzerland, within the rural communities in which the majority decision applied. The matters of concern of which must be voted on are announced first by the leadership personnel on the day of the vote, when the people assemble and have to deliver a vote for or against right then. This ensures that no previous consultations are made. Consequently, each citizen of each people votes according to his, her own, or her own discretion. Billy, interesting. So how is it then with the military, respectively with the armed forces? Ptaah, here, pure harmony and peace exists among all three races and all of their peoples for a little more than 1,208 planetary years, and no armed forces and no weapons industries for military purposes exist. Billy, and so what about the police? Ptaah, there's no such organization in the wise like it is on the earth. There are powers for order, but these form a law and order protection and security protection, which provides for the order and security of the population in relation to natural events, by which I mean, climate catastrophes and that kind of thing. The races and their peoples themselves live in an orderly manner, which has no one who has gotten very badly out of control of the good human nature. That's what the meaning of the Auskiartetan means in the slide. Like this is the case with the peoples of the earth. Billy, so to speak, an ideal state. Ptaah, in certain respects, one can indeed speak of an ideal. Billy, what is still of interest to me, dear friend, is their technology of locomotion. Do they also still have such primitive airplanes and automobiles, like etc., like we on Earth? This is certainly to be assumed if they have the technological position which we possessed in 68. Am I correct? Ptaah, your assumption is not entirely correct, because certainly they have a similar technology of locomotion, but the drives are not sustained by explosion motors using benzene and diesel oil, but they are driven with synthetic substances. All three races and all of the peoples do not exploit the petroleum of the world. All necessary substances for all things are from plants of many kinds, as well as produced synthetically. Billy, and the food? Ptaah, there exist large community gardens as well as joint farming holdings, like gardens and small farms, which, however, are also run by individual persons or small groups. And before you ask, there are economically useful animals kept and bred for work and for food purposes. Though, however, any form of cruelty to animals is taboo. Flesh for the human's diet is solely produced through breeding and slaughtering of certain animals. Fruits, vegetables, and flesh of many and diverse forms, as well as all other necessary food items and required products of other kinds, are in abundance and plentiful, and from this follows that nowhere does famine exist. All bodies of water and forests, meadows, fields, and marsh areas are healthy and completely intact. Chemical products are not laid down for the purposes of protection or growth of plants, but only substances which in turn consist of natural products. Hunting for any wild game is taboo because game meat is likewise only produced through breeding, like this also is the case with fish, etc. Billy, have you also established how old these humans get to be? Ptaah, naturally, the average age of the humans of all three races is a uniform 128 years, and death, as a rule, is due to old age. Billy, So they are also much ahead of the Earthlings in this respect. But what happens to the deceased human beings? I mean, how are they laid to rest? Are they cremated, buried, etc.? Ptaah. The deceased are laid out upon a stone bed far away from residential areas in specially created areas for them, individual, small, but they're yet very stable little stone houses, after which the entrance is closed with rocks and boulders. After that, the deceased are left to decompose. Billy, do you mean by this something like a vault? Is it with the bereaved then also, as is usual on earth, that they visit these tombs? Ptaah. No, this does not likewise belong to tradition, as well as also not the decoration of tombs with flowers, etc. Also, no inscriptions are displayed and no ritual at all is indulged in at the burial. Among all races exists also no fear of dying and death. The whole thing is considered and honored as a natural and inevitable event. Billy, so should it also be with us. And Billy continues, yet tell me now, you were only really able to reach this foreign universe because in your ancient data, you had the recordings of Henoch at your disposal. Was Henoch perhaps already over there? And you go back again soon? Ptaah. The recordings, in accordance with certain things, indicated that Henoch was actually in this foreign universe. However, we first must exactly still discover this, which a travel back in time will certainly be required to do, precisely into the time when Henoch was working. On my part, for the time being, I will not be returning back there, but a large part of our expedition remains over there. Consequently, it will further explore the three human races and everything around them, as well as a large part of that universe. So thereby ends the very interesting report. Then we come to the last report in this little series, which occurs about 7 months later with Ptaah. Very short. Billy, one more question. In the time since you have returned from the foreign universe, have any new things happened there? Ptaah. No news has been found concerning other human life forms, although 2 expedition groups are very busy. So far, 4 different worlds have been found that carry higher animal life, but no human life forms could be found on them. And with that update from Ptaah, the public conversations about the Rern mission end for the time being. It isn't until 3 years later in the contact reports that the subject arises again, and we hear more of an explanation that solves the riddle as to not only how the Plejaren found the Rern universe, but how they managed to get over there in the first place. So here we have Billy talking with Ptaah on May 11th, 2007. One question. On the 20th of July, 2002, you told me that you received the knowledge and formulas regarding the possibility of a penetration into other universes from Asket's friends, respectively from the Sonair. But another time, you also said, which unfortunately is not recorded in the contact reports, that the formulas are based on the records of Henoch. How does this all tie together? Ptaah. By different past journeys up to the earliest times of the second Nocdamian, we could clarify the following. The original records, formulas, and plans already lead back to him, the second Nocdamian, who, however, did not complete them. Consequently, only the first Henoch continued to work on them in such a wise that he also succeeded in completing everything, and that enabled him to enter the Rern universe and to stay there for a longer time and to work on several worlds. Shortly before his death, this Henoch handed over all his records on this subject to Asket's ancestors, after which they fell into oblivion because nobody worked on them anymore, and that was due to human problems of a serious nature that arose and the resulting disinterest. This also led to the loss of important data, and thus the completeness of the data, plans, and formulas were no longer there. But nevertheless, the records, formulas, and plans were passed on from one generation to the next for millions of years until they entered the Dal universe. and penultimately came into the custody of Asket's father, Ishwish-Casil, who left them to her. But since Asket, as a space engineer, was interested in the records, etc., and since, as an Ishwish, she received permission to return to the forgotten technology and also to enlist the help of the Sonair, she acted accordingly. So she handed over the records, plans, and formulas to the highly developed Sonair for further, respectively, reworking, from where we then received the further and largely reworked data, formulas, and plans, which were also further and finally elaborated by our scientists, which made the whole process and penetration into the Rern universe possible for us in the first place. Billy, then it is finally clear. But I have not heard from you for quite some time about your activity in the Rern universe. Has there been anything new in that regard? Ptaah. So far, there have been some new things concerning the discovery of various life-bearing worlds in various solar systems, and human beings have also been found. These, however, did not yet have any highly developed technology that would enable them to travel through space. Some of them do have a higher technological science, but it is still far from being possible to develop a usable space technology. 6 worlds have been found that may well carry human life, but their status is still equal to that of Stone Age humans. 4 primeval worlds were also found, which carry only primeval mammal and primeval animal life. And highly civilized human beings have not been found yet. So that ended that contact report. And in my opinion, this information is truly astonishing. The millions of years passing down of that information and the ability of the Sonair to put it all back together is just something pretty amazing to reflect on. Anyway, 10 months later, Billy is talking with Florena on March 3rd, 2008. Billy, are there any new things concerning the foreign universe, the Rern universe you call it, if I remember correctly? Are there any new insights? Florena, if your question refers to new worlds inhabited by humans, then I must disappoint you because more such worlds have not been found yet, except those you already know about. Like the Dern universe, the Rern universe is also sparsely populated by human life forms. Billy, I guess it is. But are you already exploring other space-time structures in this new universe? Florena, no, we are not yet given the opportunity to do this, which will remain so for a long time to come, because the necessary conditions must first be created. Billy, but even if you do, it will not be possible to find masses of planets with humanities. Florena, that will be the case. Billy, reality is a little different than what science fiction movies make us believe, that there are worlds inhabited by humans in every corner of the universe. In truth, they are extremely rare, which is why your federation is scattered over 50 million light years and comprises 2 different space-time structures, if I remember Quetzal's explanations correctly. Florena, your memory does not deceive you. Worlds habitable by human life forms are seldom found in all space-time structures of the universe. That was the end of that contact report. And then the last substantial reference to Rern occurs about a year later when Billy is again speaking with Florena, where they are talking about her partner, Zaphanet Paniak, and the fact that he's been over in the Rern universe working. Billy, how much longer will his absence last? Florena, his expedition work will continue until the month of June. Then he will return from the Rern universe like all the others. Billy, everyone returns. Is the expedition finished? What new has emerged? Florena, 2 more worlds were found where early human life exists. Apart from the world we told you about, which already carries a somewhat modern human civilization, according to your sense, only 2 other worlds were found, which are inhabited by human beings and which correspond to about the same level as the first one, where we can speak of a somewhat modern civilization. A world with a high civilization, which also has advanced technology, but not yet space technology, only one was found in the explored galaxy. According to the research results, the Rern universe is one that is in the first phase of existence of higher life form development. Billy. So there has been a lot of change since I last asked about it. And further, he says, please give him my regards when he is back. Florena. I will give him your greetings, which I can already do now, however, about our technological possibilities, because we are in communicative connection with the expedition participants. Therefore, we are always informed about their progress and successes and can also have our personal conversations. Billy. I find that remarkable. Unfortunately, our technological possibilities here on Earth are not so extensive and are also very susceptible to faults. Florena. I know that because your communication technology is only in its infancy compared to ours. That's the end of those contact reports. So here ends the presentation that we found so far about what's been going on in Rern and the ongoing discoveries. Perhaps in the future, there will be more info, but for now, this covers quite an interesting window of time and an extraordinary journey. The entire undertaking represents new and unprecedented technological achievements on the part of the Plejaren, which they managed with the help of their friends from the Ptaah universe. However, if we take the super long billions of years view on this, the success can be attributed back to the record keeping of the second Nocadamian and then Henoch's further working of that information that made the existence of this other primary universe known in the first place. And that Billy, given that he is of the Nocadamian lineage, had inklings of it already. Very interesting. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching, and until the next, Salome.